Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who is tuning into today's episode and also tuning in to help support the podcast. As every week I'm sharing a new episode, just sharing words and thoughts of hopes, inspiration, and motivation, hopefully to bring value into your world today. So thank you once again for being here. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was sacrifice. And the thing about sacrifice is I feel that one way or another in life, sacrifices are going to be made. Now, often we think that, we're putting in effort towards, things for the sacrifice to take place. But I think ultimately it happens one way or another, regardless of what. And what I mean by this is, sacrifice is a big part of wanting to build a bigger life, right? To build the dream life that you want, to elevate to the next level in life. Now, the higher you want to raise to the levels of success in life, the more sacrifice that is going to be required in order to achieve that. Because dues must be paid, right? You have to work for a greater life, for greater things. It just doesn't come free. And those things all require some form of sacrifice. A lot of times it might be sacrificing your free time, or you're just not free to go do the things you might want to do because you got to do the things that you got to do to get you to the places that you want to go. Sometimes it's sacrificing money. Maybe there are things you want to purchase right now, things you want to spend money on. But, maybe you have to save because you wanted to start a company so you can live this dream life. And now you've got money that's got to get poured into investing into your company to get it growing, right? Sometimes it's sacrificing even family time, as hard as it is to be sometimes, because you got to put work into the things that are going to create a life that you dream of providing for them and yourself. So sacrifice comes in many ways when it comes to achieving the life that we want. But it's just a price that you have to pay. But on the plus side of that, I look at it like this. It might feel like a sacrifice to do things to create a life that you want, a dream life that you want to live. But the payoff is when you get there, right? Is it really a sacrifice then when you're able to live out your dreams, when you're able to live out the dream life? It only feels that way during the time because you're not there yet, and it takes effort. Long days, long weekends. It's one of the things I realize now as a business owner is I'm so busy, like I don't have time to just chill, As of this recording, it is the 4th of July, and I'm not going to go out and hang out and go watch fireworks. Like I'm working, I'm working on making money. I'm working on my business. I'm working on, things to grow the business. And that's a sacrifice, that I have to make, knowing that the bigger goal is to achieve that life that I want for myself, for my family, for my loved ones. And it's the price that I've got to pay in order to get there. So while it might feel like a sacrifice right now, when we get there, it'll all be worth it. And that's the one thing I realize is, again, I have no time to just hang out and chill. I sacrifice my weekends. I'm not doing what everybody else is doing, just hanging around, just chilling, getting to go do this and do that. My mind is so focused on building a business, making money, providing a better future for my family and loved ones, then the sacrifice right now is I have to give up those weekends. I have to give up my free time. I have to work out until the middle of the night, do whatever it is that I've got to do to get me one step closer to the dream. So again, there's so many different sacrifices when it comes to that in order to achieve that life. And that's really sometimes the sacrifice that we think. But let's talk on the other side of that sacrifice. Say you want those dream lives. You want to reach this level of success. You want a different life. But you don't want the sacrifice of doing the work, of losing your weekends, of losing some sleep, of losing some money right now, right? Put your efforts towards building that life, building that next version of yourself, right? it may not come that way, Oftentimes, if you're not making the sacrifice to build the life that you want, the life that you dream of, the sacrifice itself is not being able to live the life that you truly, truly want. Most people don't think about it that way most times, right? They say there's this quote I hear quite often that says that if you don't sacrifice for the things that you want, then the things that you want then become the sacrifice. Because if you're not willing to put in the work, give up things in the temporary, work longer days, give up your weekends on whatever it is to get you to the place that you really want in life, then the thing you might actually want most is going to be the sacrifice that you're going to have to make, because you're not going to be able to have it, because you're not willing to do what it's going to take in order to achieve it. And again, people don't think about it this way. That's why you're always making a sacrifice one way or another, either for the things that you want or the sacrifice of the thing of that you want, because you're not going to have it. Not being able to put in extra work, giving up things, pushing things off, delaying gratification for the things that you want most versus what you want now. And what I think it boils down to is, what sacrifice are you going to be able to live with? Some people will be able to live without the sacrifice of, or live with the sacrifice of knowing they might have to give up some freedom right now. They might have to give up, some things that they want to do right now. But in order to achieve the thing that they want, they know when they get there, they're willing to, sacrifice, the other life where you don't really have to put in the work to achieve it, right? So they're okay with the sacrifice that it's going to take to get where they want. Some people might not want that. They might not want the sacrifice that it's going to take to build something big, to build their dream life. And maybe they're okay with sacrificing their dreams, right? Like, it's really up to everybody at the end of the day. But for me, I feel like if God put you here on this earth for a reason, and you always have these dreams, this thing that pulls you in a certain direction, I feel it's because you're meant to do that. That's your purpose, that's your calling, that's what you're here to do. And for me personally, I don't want to sacrifice, what life would look like if I don't pursue the things that are constantly calling to me, that are constantly pulling me in to where I want to, go, and where I believe my path is leading me down. So for me, I have to sacrifice my weekends. I have to sacrifice giving up money here. I have to sacrifice, sleep, so many different things in order to build the dream. But I'm okay with those kind of sacrifices, because I know once I can get the outcome, once I can get to that life, once I can get to that destination, that it's all going to be worth it, to look back and be like, that's what I was willing to do in order to achieve this. And here I am now, because I don't want to have to look back and be like, what could have been, what should have been, But, since I wasn't willing to sacrifice, I guess we'll never know. So the message here is this, right? One way or another, you're always going to sacrifice in life. And it's something you don't really think of. But you're either sacrificing to do the things that it's going to take to get the dream life that you always wanted and that you dream of having, whatever that may look like, just living the life that you want to live. Or you're going to have to sacrifice that dream because you're not willing to put in the work and put in the effort and do what it's going to take to get to where you truly do in your heart want to go. And what sacrifice you're able to live with is it's to everybody, to decide for themselves. But, I think if you have to look back and think that one day you're going to have to answer to that. For me, I'd rather do what's necessary now to get to where I want to than to have to look back 40 years, from now and be like, man, I just settled. I wasn't willing to sacrifice for the dream life, so I settled for a life that I really didn't want, that I hate, and et cetera, et cetera. And that for me is not where I want to be. And I don't want that to be for anybody else and where they want to be in their lives. But no matter what, sacrifices are necessary. Sacrifices have to be made one way or another. And you're either sacrificing for the life that you want, or the life that you want then becomes the sacrifice. So it's a great question to ask yourself, and what sacrifice you can live with, and which one you're going to be able to sleep at bed at night with, because I think if some people actually realize that, if they're not making a sacrifice to build their life, then the life that they really want is what they're sacrificing. It might change the way they think about things. So, but as always, folks, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you on the next one.